Hey everybody, welcome back to our live stream once again on a Sunday afternoon. Man, sometimes you just got to pull rabbits out of your hat and make things happen because, today it was a busy day. I started off early in the morning, had a number of appointments I actually had to do for work before I could make this happen. And then when I finished today, I got more appointments I got to go for work. So at least I was able to get it in today, schedule it so I could fit it in and make it happen. Today is exciting because I have another guest that I'm going to bring on. His name is Albert Shank, and he is from Phoenix, Arizona. Like, this guy is awesome. He's been running for 27 plus years. He's got lots to talk about. He's run some crazy ultra races. Let me read a little bit of some of the things that that he's done here. I think he's run up to like 50 miles, countless long adventures in the mountains all over the US. This year he signed up for Squaw Peak 50 in Utah, and he's put his name in for the Wasatch 100 lottery. So hopefully he finds out on the 25th if he gets in. We can get in and talk about all the other things that Albert has done. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a talk just to say who our guest is today. So before we get in and start talking to Albert about Maffetone and how he got into that, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an update on me and kind of what's going on. So things are progressing kind of well. I've got this heart rate strap that I'm wearing, and it seems to be working much better than just my watch. I have a little bit of a knee thing going on, and I don't know what's happening with it, but my right knee, it's still kind of bugging me. It doesn't hurt when I run. It's kind of like a throbbing feeling when I put my foot on the accelerator when I'm driving. And when I push down, and if I'm driving for a long period of time, I kind of get this aching throb. It's not like a throb, it just really kind of aches. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to get it checked out, I guess, but it hasn't affected my running, which is great. So that's kind of, I think the thing that's kind of got me going with my running is more of trying to find the time to fit in if I'm not getting the run in the morning. It's just, I'm finding it a little bit harder. And just with work, it's been that challenge to just get it in earlier. And it is what it is. I just need to suck it up and get out there and make it happen. And one of my runs I did, I didn't run today, whether it was yesterday or the day before. I got up early, was able to see the sunrise, which was absolutely beautiful. You probably saw it in today's video that I posted, but it was absolutely glorious, beautiful, beautiful day out there. Love running in the snow. It's awesome. So it's just a nice feeling. But anyways, I want to let you all know if you've got questions for myself or for Albert for Maffetone training, please comment, put it in the comment section because we will be reviewing them. So please go ahead and do so. And that will help us. If you want to let us know where you're watching from, that would be super cool as well. And so let me bring Albert on here. Hey, Albert, how are you?
Doing great.
That's
living
awesome.
The dream.
Living the dream. Hey, listen, thanks for agreeing to let me bring you on the show today, because I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. Just, we're in this amazing MAF group on Facebook, and Albert was one of the first guys to comment on one of my posts a long time ago. And, I've listened to what this guy has to say. He's helped me immensely back and forth in our group. He is one of the admins on our Maffetone group as well. And I'm just glad to have you here, Albert. So thanks for joining.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Now, you're from Phoenix, right?
Originally, I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. That's where I grew up. But I've been living in Phoenix for 27 going on 28 years.
Nice. And what do you do for work then? You are
I'm a college Spanish teacher at Scottsdale Community College in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Nice. So you can speak fluent Spanish. That's flipping amazing. I wish I could speak a second language.
We've got online classes if you want to take them.
Hey, you guys take Canadians?
Well, I can understand Canadian pretty well. Depends on what you guys say. So I do know what a toque. I know what a toque is.
You know what a toque is about? Everyone thinks it's
About I know what things are about.
hey, that's the other
Hey.
one. It's all good, man. It's all good.
I love languages.
Oh man, languages is flipping awesome. I have a
Yeah.
client who's an archaeologist, and we were looking at properties, and he didn't even want to look at the house. It was more of like looking at the land and going, I wonder what's under there. It's kind of neat. But so let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What made you get into running? Like, what was your forte into that?
How many hours do you have? I'll give you the short story that got me into running. In high school, I was a pretty mediocre track athlete. I did the 800 and the 1600 relay. I also did some pole vaulting, and I was pretty miserable at those things. I wasn't much for running for very long distances. And then I joined the military, the Virginia Army National Guard in 1987. And we were forced to do runs at that time. We had to do 5-mile runs, and I thought it was the most agonizing, horrible thing ever. And then I moved to Phoenix in 1993, and I discovered the mountains here. I always liked mountains and national parks. My parents brought me up going to national parks. We were really close to the Shenandoah National Park. It was only like 12 miles from their house. And so we spent a lot of time going up there. And I always loved the woods and trails and whatnot. And then when I moved here, I discovered the trails and just started getting into running up to the top of mountains and running down. And it kind of just took off from there. Did my first half marathon in 1998. And my goal back then was to get into doing the Pikes Peak Marathon up in Colorado. I had a student who knew I loved running up and down mountains. He says, "Oh, you need to do the Pikes Peak Marathon." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Oh, it's this race from Manitou up to the top of Pikes Peak, and it's 26.8 miles or something like that. Or I don't know if it's exactly 26.2 like a regular marathon. But anyway, that was my motivation back then. Never did the race actually, but I started really getting more and more into running, and then eventually did my first ultra marathon in 2000, the Crown King Scramble. And it kind of took off from there. That's the short story. I could go into way more detail if you want, but
That's awesome.
That's what got me going. Yeah.
Have you ever run any of Jamil's races at all?
Tons of them. Yeah, I ran my first Aravaipa. I've actually known Jamil and his brothers since 2008. His brother Nathan was a student of mine at. I teach part-time at Arizona State University as well, and Nathan was a student of mine, and I already knew Jamil and got to know Nick after that, and I knew about Aravaipa, and I did my first race with them in 2010, and I've done a bunch of their races since then. I don't know how many. It's been a lot of races.
That's awesome. Yeah, he seems to put on a lot of cool races. Like I've had friends of mine that have actually gone down there and have run his races. So yeah, it's very cool what he does. That's for sure.
It is great swag too. I have like 20 glasses in my cabinet, from all the races I've done, and shirts and things, I don't know, bandanas and whatnot. I just kind of keep accumulating things.
Yeah, it's funny how all the things that we accumulate when we're runners, we run races, right? So,
yep.
Hey, one of the things I thought about was so you've been running for quite some time, and you've run a lot of races now. Now, you mentioned in the email that you had sent me that you haven't really, knock on wood, you haven't really had very many injuries per se. How have you been able to run all these years and kind of stay injury free, so to speak?
Well, it's really intuitive. I knew from the very beginning that even before getting into Maffetone and low heart rate training, I knew that running hard all the time, doing lots and lots of track work and interval training, I knew that too much of that had to be a bad thing. It just made sense to me that if you run hard too often, you're going to get hurt. And for me, it was never acceptable to allow myself to get to the point where I couldn't run anymore. Now, I won't say that I've never had like little tiny niggles where something in my heel hurts or something in my shin hurts, but never anything that made me have to take time off. But every little niggle you get, you just deal with it. You cut back on your training. You don't do anything hard. You just go nice and easy, do a lot of walking, and it goes away really quickly. Whereas if you try to power through it and try to maintain whatever pace you were doing, you're going to get injured more, and then it turns chronic, and then you're out. And to me, that just never made sense. So I always believed in taking days off, not doing multiple days in a row of hard training, and it seems to have served me well so far. Knock on wood.
That's really cool. So, I mean, now, how did you kind of get into Maffetone training? Like, how did that kind of happen for you?
Okay, so another long story that I'll make really short for the purpose of programming. So it was 2002, and I'm doing the Zane Grey. Back then, it was a 50-mile race. It's a super tough trail race in northern Arizona, and it's they say it's 50 miles. I think it was more like 52, 53, but everybody says that about any 50-mile race. And I'm going up this hill. It was within the first 4 miles of the race, and I'm going up this hill, just kind of chugging along. And this guy comes up behind me. He says, "Hey, you're doing intervals. Don't do intervals. You're gonna burn out. You're not gonna be able to finish." And I'm like, "Who is this guy? What's his deal?" So anyway, he sticks with me, and then he passes me, and later on, I talked to him, and he ends up being one of my best friends. He's a local guy here. He's a really, really good runner. He's done Hard Rock and Leadville 100. He's a stud. And so he and I became friends. And in the course of our conversations during the next year, he tells me, he didn't say in name Maffetone, but he says, "Here's what you need to do when you train. You need to make sure that your runs are at 130 beats per minute or lower." That didn't, whatever, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "Okay, cool. I'll do that. I'll keep my heart rate 130 or below." So I get a heart rate strap as like a polar strap with a polar watch. And so I do that, and I'm walking like the whole time. And I remember like in 2003 going for a run with my wife and a bunch of other people, this group run on this really awesome dirt road about, I don't know, 45 minutes north of here. And everyone's just taken off, off into the sunset. And here I am with this heart rate monitor on, trying to keep my heart rate at 130 or below. And I'm walking most of the time. And then when I go downhill, I'm able to run, but it's so slow. And I thought, well, this sucks. What is it? But anyway, fast forward a little bit, and I get a book by Phil, one of Phil's old books from the 1990s. It's called the Maffetone Method. And I get into reading that, and I find out about the 180 formula. So rather than doing, keeping my heart rate below 130, I thought, the 180 formula. And back then, I don't know how old I was. I think I was 34. So I'm like, okay, 180 minus 34, 146. And that was really workable. So I started getting into it at that point. About 2003 to early 2004 is when I really started getting more into it. Just the 180 formula aspect of it. I didn't get into the nutrition or the paying attention to stress and all those things. I didn't get into those until later. But that's basically how I got into it. Is my friend influenced me to give it a shot. So
that's so cool. Everyone's got their story. Everyone has their something that's gotten them into something, right? Like, I don't know. There's always, I think we are a society who have stories everywhere. And I love asking people how they get into these things because, for me, I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? It just sucked.
Right.
And
for me, it was more of a lot of people get into it because they're getting injured and they get sick or they're tired. For me, it was more of a performance thing. Like I had newbie gains in the first 2 years I was doing ultras. So I had some early successes, I guess you could call them. And then my performance just started to decline. And I just started to really do terrible at the 50-mile races. I'm still trying to figure out 50-mile races. So I thought there has to be a better way to do this. So that's why I got into it, is because I wasn't satisfied with the way things were going. So,
well, you know what? Kudos to you to be able to think like that. That's awesome, because there's a lot of us out there that it doesn't happen like that. I mean, for most people, they've gotten injured, they're not happy with with where they're at, and I know some people, they just keep gaining weight. They keep running, but they keep gaining weight. And then all of a sudden an injury takes them out, and then they can't recover, and then before you know it, they're fed up, and then they hang up the running shoes and they say, "I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore."
right. Oh, if I had a nickel for every story I've heard like that, I'd have a little bit of money in the bank. So,
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely, right. And so that's kind of like where I was kind of coming from. Is I just got fed up. I needed to kind of get back into it, because I started to kind of back off and go, "Oh, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore." So I kind of started backing off, and then reached a point where I'm like, no, it's time. I can't keep going, because I started to revert back to what I used to be, and I didn't want that. So I thought, perfect opportunity. I'm going to get a pair of ultras, and I'm going to go ahead and do Maffetone. Like that's what I'm going to do. And I started, and it sucked at the beginning. Like it was good. I mean, I started to see some cool things like in the first couple of days, but then I didn't see anything for a period of time. It just kind of went, okay, I'm doing it. And then after about a month, I really started to see a glimmer. And then I'm like, you know what? Okay, this is the way to do it. I'm diving in all in, look after diet, stress, the whole thing. Let's do it. And that's when I dived in. And obviously you've been seeing my progress over the last little while. And I'm happy with kind of where things, have been going. But now after my 50 miler, it was like, I felt like I just kind of fell off a cliff afterwards, because I'd never run an ultra before. And now I'm like, I have to figure this stuff out. And every single thing is starting to like not feel right. Heart rate's elevated. I think I went back and I started running too soon, and I ran a half marathon, which is why my right knee is a little bit tender. And it's been tender since like the middle of November. And, I back off for like a week or two, and then I start again, and then I can kind of feel it. I got to go get it checked out. But because COVID, I haven't been able to go in and see anybody yet. So
right.
we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm well aware of it. It doesn't hurt when I run. It just hurts when I.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it only hurts when I'm actually putting my foot on the accelerator in the car. That's the only time it hurts. So
that's so strange. I've had friends who were tremendous runners and athletes, and they tore their ACL stepping off of a sidewalk, of all things. They could do 50-mile races. They stepped off the sidewalk, boom, tore their ACL.
Wow.
So you never, it's always the thing that, well, not always, but frequently the thing that doesn't cause your pain. You do something that you're not used to doing, or you just step really weird, and then you get this injury. And it's never out of nowhere. There's always a reason for it, but it seems like it's out of nowhere.
Yeah, and usually, and if your knee is hurting, it's not necessarily your knee. It's something else that's actually going on that's causing it to feel at that point. It's kind of like, I always kind of explain this to my clients when we go look at a house, and they're like, we look up and we can see that it's the roof, the roof is leaking in a certain spot. Well, where it's leaking, it's not right there. You got to follow it along, find a corner, and then it's probably leaking from a corner and then along the beam. It's kind of like the same thing with us, right? We're all connected with everything that we're connected with.
Right. That whole chain, what do they call it? The
connective?
Right. Exactly.
The connective chain, something like that.
Something like that.
So I'm just gonna do a couple of shout outs to a couple of people that are on here. A couple of people saying hi. So Cuddles from South Africa saying hello, and Julie from London, hello. Cliff from London or from the UK, hello. The Running Fred says hello. Good to have you here. KK, nice to see you. Cuddles again says and KK's down in Texas, I believe. Stephen from the Cayman Islands is saying hello. Good to see you. Julie says hi from the UK as well. She's saying hold on a sec. There's a couple of questions that they actually asked. Hold on, let me go back here. So the Cuddles was saying to everyone, would you guys count your walking distance as part of your mileage?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A huge part of my training, like this morning, I did a 10-mile run and half of it was walking. Now, out of fairness, it was a very steep mountain that I was doing repeats on. So I would walk up and then run down. And absolutely, that counts. And especially if you're doing like ultra marathons, really hilly courses, walking is essential as part of your training. Now, if you're doing a flat marathon, it depends on where you're at in your ability and your fitness. Of course, if you're going for a sub-3, I don't think you want to do a whole lot of walking, but if you're aiming for, sub-5, walking can be a very, very integral part of that process and make you actually faster and help you recover better. Because, running 26 miles is tough on the body. And if you're walking for part of that, you're recovering, you're bringing your heart rate down, and it can really save you a lot of wear and tear. So, yeah, definitely count the walking. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish more people...
I'm not a purist. I'm not one of those guys that says, oh, no, you have to run every step of every run all the time. No, forget it. Walk if you need to.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to be able to go long term, like 27 plus years, right? Like that's kind of what you want. So KK was saying, I wish I had that kind of sense. Yeah, to not get injured and go slow. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that.
It's you have to fundamentally transform your way of thinking. It's not a method that you buy into. There's no buying into it. Works. You just need to change. What you need to buy into is the idea that you need to fundamentally change your way of thinking into something that is more long-term and sustainable. A lot of people, they've got their eyes on Boston 2022, and they want to qualify, and they need to get this speed. And so they do what they need to do to get there. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, that means overextending, overreaching, and then eventually overtraining. And that's unfortunate, but that's their way of thinking. And if you don't get out of that way of thinking, you're just going to repeat the same mistakes over and over.
I can raise my hand to that. I can say that that's what happened to me. I mean, I burned out. And then the next year I got injured running my marathon. I literally got injured. So while I was running that race. So, and that's what almost took me out. But obviously, I found my way into Maffetone and training, and it's been great. So Stephen from the Cayman Islands, he says my MAF threshold is 155, but is way above my zone 2. Am I not normal? So what do you say, Albert, when people, when their threshold just seems to be too hard, right? Even in that zone, right?
Right.
And they seem to be going above it.
Well, that's the thing about the method is that the formula, the 180 formula, which is a part of the method, is intended to be it's a starting point. It's a suggestion. Okay, start here, see where you're at. And if you happen to be one of those people who has, you're at this point, like, I don't know this person's history. Maybe they've been running for a long time and their body's more adapted to running. And so they have developed their aerobic endurance over time, even at age 25, which is very young. You've got a long way to go to develop, and many years to develop aerobic endurance. Your threshold may actually be lower than that, and so you need to adjust. If 155 feels too hard, then don't try to run at 155 all the time. Try 145 and see where you're at. You may need to lower your threshold because your brain is telling you that's what you should do. I know that Zach Bitter, 100-mile world record holder who lives just down the street from me here, he encountered that when he was doing MAF. He had to lower his threshold. He had to lower his beats because it was too hard for him to do for too long. So, yeah. So, no, you are normal. If your zone 2 is a lot, max heart rate 194. So, how to react to that? I'm not an expert. Basically if your max heart rate is 194, you take 70% of that. That should be, that's lower than 155. So definitely lower your beats. And over time, you're going to find that is probably, as you adapt, you're going to go lower and lower. That maximum heart rate will probably come down too. But lower it. see where you
There's
are. Do it
nothing,
for a while.
there's nothing wrong with going slower. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you're building that base, right? And if you spend more time working on your foundation, even if it's a house or whether it's your fitness, it will serve you better in the future anyways, right?
Yep.
This is
And
all
you
about
will get faster. You'll get faster at the lower heart rates. I guarantee you, if you're patient, you will. My MAF right now is 128 unadjusted, 133 if I add the 5 beats, which I do for hilly runs. I haven't had any injuries, so I do that. I don't do that for every run, but I very frequently run well under that. I'll run 115. This morning, my average was 109. You know, and you get faster even at that low heart rate, and it's worth it, and it saves your body tons and tons of wear and tear. So
yeah, I know somebody, Al Story. He's from Welland, kind of close to Niagara Falls, and he actually did it MAF for a whole entire year by walking. Totally built up, like really fast walking as quick as he could get it, and he did it for a year. Now he's running, and he says what a difference that 1 year made just by walking every day.
Yep.
And he'd walk far, like we're talking, you know, some days 20 kilometers just walking, right? He'd start at like 5 o'clock in the morning and he'd be out there, and he just kept building it up, and he's a strong guy, and older than I am. I think he's like 66, I think.
Yeah.
Or Al, if you're watching this and I got your age wrong, I apologize. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
right?
walking is underrated. A lot of people think, oh, you got to run on, you know, when every run you do, you have to run every step. And I so disagree. And I think if I were to work with someone who wants to run and they're new to it, I'd tell them to walk first. Work on increasing your walking speed, and then gradually start sprinkling in some jogging here and there, and then build it up nice and slow over the course of a couple of years or longer, however long it takes. Because then you're developing your aerobic base, you're developing all these muscles and capillaries and everything, and really in making yourself strong. Because great endurance and strength, you don't do it in a month or 2 or 3 or 6 months. You do it in years. And over the course of time, if you spend the time to develop it, I'm not saying that you're guaranteeing yourself not to get injured, but you sure are gonna make it a lot harder to get injured. So
yeah,
that's just anecdotal, but that's what I would recommend.
For sure. So yeah, so Julie was just saying that, yeah, she agrees. Add that in. Cuddles, there you go. KK, oh, she was from Georgia.
There's some good races in Georgia.
Yes, there are.
No need to apologize for walking ever. Walking's great.
Walking is flipping awesome. Hello from Denmark. Apologize for walking. Why apologize for walking? That's what
you shouldn't.
All good. It's all good. Walking is not part of the training. Or wait, walking is not a part.
Is it not a part of the training for a better heart rate? It absolutely is a part of training. Yeah. It can make you a much better runner.
It certainly can. Certainly can. KK was my 1 hour run / walk today was average of 102. Much easier to recover. Yeah. It's a thing, right? I mean, we just do the things that we need to go ahead and do to be. Here's the thing. Like, it's not like we're Olympic athletes. It's not like, you know, we're I mean, I just want to be able to run my way. Well, first off, stay out of the retirement home as long as possible. But if I end up going, I want to be able to run there.
I like that attitude. Yeah.
Right. Like,
for sure.
I mean, for me, I just find I'm such a happier, joyful person when I'm running. And when I'm not running, then my wife tells me that I need to go run.
That's why I stay healthy, because not being able to run is not an option.
That's right.
I will turn into a terror.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? All right. So Cliff was saying, has anyone had COVID jab yet? I got mine Wednesday, so trying to bank some miles in case. I just need to take a few days off. Awesome. Good for you to be able to, you know, get that in there and take a number of days off. One thing that you'll notice a couple of people have actually have been vaccinated, and they found that their heart rate did climb, and it took them about a week to slowly get back to normal. So,
Yeah, I know when I haven't gotten the COVID vaccine, when I get a flu shot, I typically get very, very, very sore in my arm, and it just hurts. And I don't find that it affects my running, so I just do my thing. I can just feel it, but I just say, just like with anything else, feel it out and pay attention to your heart rate. Heart rate doesn't lie. If your heart rate's high, don't try to push through it. Keep it at or below MAF, even if you slow down. Who cares? Just listen to your body.
Yep, absolutely. I had mine a few weeks ago, Cliff. Didn't affect running, just had a sore arm. Well, just like yourself.
Yeah.
And Cliff was like, all right, that is good to go. So yeah, so here's something that comes up a lot of the time. And I know when I heard this, it put a big smile on my face. And it was when Phil Maffetone was talking about when you establish your 180 formula, like when you establish your MAF zone, right? Mine's 138. 133. And then I added 5 to take me to 138. So 133, and that's fine. I've been running, everything's been working. Every year, I always thought that I had to reduce a beat every single year until I heard and actually did a video on it with Phil talking about this. You don't have to. As long as you've been improving and right along on all your MAF tests, you don't need to go ahead and drop every year. And that was like, it felt so nice to hear.
Right. Again, it's listening to your body. I know that when I'm out doing something really hilly, I'm out there for 2 or 3 hours. Toward the end of the run, heart rate naturally rises. I'm okay if it goes to 135. I'm not going to die, and I've noticed it doesn't affect anything. You just have to listen to your body. Now, if I notice that I'm taking it to 135, a lot, and then I'm starting to feel tired and achy, well, that's probably not a good thing. It's all about listening to yourself. So, yeah, and you don't need to drop it every year. Just pay attention to how you're, keep it at that level. And if you're feeling fatigued or sore, then bring it down. So.
Yep. But if some people I know who have said, well, what happens if you take a couple of years off? Well, if you take a couple of years off, okay, you may
take off.
Yeah, you may want to adjust your MAF number and then do the test and see what's going on. Don't go back to where you were like 5-6 years ago. Where are you today? Right.
Right. You can get injured doing MAF. If you take time off, try to go right back to where you were. That's the whole do too much too quick thing, and you can get injured very, very easily. Doing MAF doesn't guarantee. It's not a panacea. It doesn't make you bulletproof. You're just as susceptible. You need to listen to the brain.
Yeah, you're not like Superman, that's for sure. Right?
Yeah.
So what's some of the things that you see a lot of people kind of struggling with? Because I remember for me, my biggest thing was trying to figure out a shuffle, right? Because I had back in the summer, I had this whole ego thing going, I need to run.
Yeah.
And my ego, that's what my ego was saying, right? So I dial it back and it's like, no, I got to walk, right? When it's hot outside, I just got to walk. Because it's 101 day, it was like 114 Fahrenheit. It was crazy hot. And I'm like, I am reduced to physically walking. And my heart rate was at 138 just by walking. Yep. I was like, wow. Yep.
That's Phoenix. That's what happens in the summer here. I actually, and I'll answer your question in a sec, but I actually see here in the summer, when we hit June, July and August are especially bad here because we have the humidity as well. A lot of people don't know. They say, oh, it's the dry heat. No, you don't understand. July and August, we actually have humidity that comes up from the south, and it makes it 10 times worse because the dry heat isn't so bad in the morning. But when you have the humidity, all bets are off. So I go 2 to 4 minutes per mile slower at the same heart rate in the summer, and that's just how it is. And I even lower my heart rate. I even work out even lower. I don't even go up to MAF. Going up to MAF, I'll last half an hour, and that's it. So I'll go like 10, 20 beats below MAF. But to answer your question about, what are the frustrations or the things I see that people struggle with, number one is ego, for sure. Especially if they've been running for a while. A lot of people come in with a preconceived notion that, I have to be running what I was running before, 8-minute miles, 9-minute miles. And the fact is most, I don't know if I don't have any numbers to support most, but many recreational runners like us come into this method with, I was running 8-minute, 9-minute miles before. And in all honesty, that's probably too fast for day-to-day training anyway. So they think that an 8 to 9-minute mile is slow, when in fact, for your day-to-day training, that's probably like a zone 3, like, above MAF type of training. And so that's where the fundamental shift in the way of thinking comes in. They haven't gotten there yet. They haven't shifted their way of thinking and understanding that what I was doing before was too fast, even if it seems slow, 8 to 9-minute miles, 10-minute miles, whatever. So they have to turn off that ego and accept that this is where you are aerobically now. You're running 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-minute miles. That's the way it is. And it's okay, but you have to shut the ego off and understand that if you're doing 13-minute miles, you're doing 13-minute miles. You will improve if you stick with it. And eventually you'll get back to running those 9-minute miles in training, except your heart rate will be 25, 30, 35, 40 beats lower, which is super cool. So that, I think, ego is the biggest issue that runners have coming in. We're talking about runners. I don't know about cycling or any other sport. I'm specifically talking about running. So that's the biggest thing. There are other little things too, but that's the one I see that's incredibly common.
Yeah, that's the one that tends to just cycle around, because I get a lot of questions on that same one, right? Because it's like, I should be doing this, or you get a lot of people who think too much, right? There's a lot of thinking going on, right?
That's the second problem that a lot of recreational runners have, is that they think too much. Just set your heart rate and stick with that, and then train, and don't think too much. I see a lot of really, really long posts that, talk about they have all these issues, and I'm trying this, my heart rate's spiking there, and what does that mean? And what does this mean? I'm like, you know what? Set your heart rate monitor to MAF, put your alarm 5 beats below, and then go with it, and go out and enjoy being outside. Because if you overthink it, that causes stress. And then when you start getting angry at yourself and, I should be running 9-minute miles by now. I've been doing MAF for 2 weeks and I haven't seen any change yet. It may take longer than that. It could take months. It could take a year or longer to see really substantive change in your pace, but it's worth it. Trust me.
Yeah.
It really is.
The one thing that, and it's funny thinking about this, is because after running my 50 miler, and I've never run 50 miler. I never knew what to expect. I didn't really know how long the recovery is. Sure, you may feel good, but your heart rate's definitely not there. So there was this whole learning curve that I had to go through. And now that winter's here, not only did I do that, then you have to go through the recovery process, and I really haven't been running that well. But then I start, looking at my numbers, and I've got like the Polar H10 strap now, and so it got it synced with my watch, so it's all good. But I'm looking at my numbers, going, "You got to be kidding me! I've gone all the way back up. Like, how is this possible?" So
then you have to let it go. You have to let it go. You are where you are.
Yeah.
And 50 miles is a long way, and it beats you up bad. I've never had a 50-mile race where I felt like, ooh, I can go out and run some more. It takes a while. I'd say to get back to aerobic fitness, a good aerobic fitness level, a couple months, maybe longer.
Yeah.
It takes a while, and that's okay.
What was that?
It's okay. That's the way it is. You'll save if you try to push it. Like, I've seen people, it's mind blowing what I see. That's the thing about Strava, is you get to see a lot of really mind blowingly bad training on Strava. And I'll see people, they'll run a 50-mile race on Saturday and they're doing speed work the next week. I'm like, you just ran 50 miles. Why? You're not, your last name isn't Walmsley. Why are you doing speed work? You're going to get injured. And they always get injured.
Yeah, exactly.
99 times out of 100, they get injured. So yeah, you just let it go. You walk, you train, you listen to your body. If your joints hurt, you don't run. You go out and walk, and you just feel it out, and your body will recuperate when it recuperates. And obviously there's the other things. You got to get good sleep. You got to eat, whole unprocessed foods to help your body recover. And then it happens when it happens.
That one that you just said. So I'm vegan. I eat a lot of healthy foods, but I find a lot of people miss that the food component, like the diet component, the stress, like reducing stress. Like they don't think about that stuff, right? They think, okay, it's just heart rate training. I just have to run at this heart rate, and then they don't see any improvements. But meanwhile, they're eating like Big Macs, and they're drinking big sodas and donuts and chocolate and
Pop-Tarts for breakfast
and big baguettes, like, big pieces of bread. And, it never ends, right? Muffins. Yep. And I see a lot of that. And then they're like, I'm just not seeing the results. Well, what are you eating? Oh, right. Oh, I didn't know about that. I forgot about that.
That's the thing that a lot of recreational runners, and me included, really, honestly, the stress reduction and the food, that was the last thing to come in the whole, Maffetone process, was figuring those things out. I never gave them a second thought. I said, when I first started, it was the 180 formula. And I don't blame people for thinking, oh, Maffetone, the 180 formula, that's what it's all about. Because that's what I thought. And then once you start getting into it, you're like, oh no, there's the whole nutritional aspect, which is equally important to that. And I never gave it much thought until like the last 7 years. And oh my gosh, what a difference it makes in terms of how your body feels and the inflammation and your ability to recover. And for me, it doesn't matter what diet you follow. I don't particularly follow any kind of diet. I just try to avoid processed foods. And I think that's the key. Avoid processed foods, any kind of sugar, cereals, breads, keep it really low or eliminate it, and then avoid vegetable oil, seed oils, things like that. Those are killers. Yes. And then everything else just works if you figure it out. I think nutrition is a very, very individual thing. You figure it out. As long as it's not processed and it works for you, then that's what you do. And a lot of people don't figure that out.
No, they don't. So Art saying at 67, the 180 formula does not work the same. For me, being a runner for over 49 years, I find I need to find my comfort in MAF heart rate. So yeah, I found that there's a number of people who, because Phil talked about this, and he said that he was never, I think he had like one person in their 60s when he was doing an evaluation to come up with the 180 formula. So because of that, he basically has stated, if you are above 60 or 65, I think it's 65.
I think 65, yeah.
Yeah, I think add about 10 beats or 5 beats, and then do your MAF test, and then do it continuously and see if you improve. If you're not improving, then reduce it, right? And it's kind of like that experiment of one. Like, we need to figure it out, 180 minus your age, but then as a rule, if it works for you, great. If it's not, make some tweaks.
Exactly. At age 67, that would put him at a 113. And, I've been running a long time, and I can run at 113, on a flat surface, downhill, on an uphill if I'm not running too hard, maybe walking a lot. But if they're 67 and they're just coming into running, it's going to be really hard to do 113. It's going to be, if not impossible. So they may have to bump it up. And even a runner of 49 years, that 113, that just may not be, that's maybe too low. So he'll have to, bump it up and see where he's at, 123, 125, somewhere in there. And if he feels good and he improves, then that's right.
Hopefully that helps, Art. Hopefully that helps. So here, you can take this one. This one's your question. So Stephen was saying, thanks for the answer, Albert and David. So what would you suggest for my MAF training? Should I run it at a heart rate of 150?
Is this the 67-year-old?
No, this was the 25-year-old from
25-year-old.
He's from the Cayman Islands, so it's really hot all the time.
I mean, yeah, with the heat and humidity, try 150, and if it still feels hard, bump it down to 145. Going lower isn't a bad thing. It's going to save your body a lot of wear and tear, especially at age 25. You can you can get away with a little bit here and there. I mean, eventually you're going to have to, think a little harder on everything. But yeah, I would bump it down to 150, 145. See where you're at. You'll improve no matter what. So see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do it consistently. Do it for 4 weeks. And even if 150 starts to feel hard after a week, then bump it down and then keep it at 145 for 4 weeks and see if you are improving at that point.
Yeah. So Julie was saying, yeah, Stephen may want to try running at a conversational pace. So, I mean, whenever I look at conversational pace, I mean, it's different from person to person because someone could be running fairly quick, but then, they say, oh, well, can you sing the national anthem while you're running, right? Can you I can hold a conversation and run fast. So sometimes I find that the whole conversational pace can be very difficult to really narrow what that is because everyone's
highly subjective.
Yeah, totally.
But that's one thing. A lot of people say breathe through your nose. If you can breathe through your nose while you're running, you're probably going to have a lower heart rate. I don't find that works too well for me, but a lot of people swear by it. That might be something to try. Breathe through your nose and try to keep conversational pace.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because Julie, she has experimented with nasal running, nasal breathing, and actually I've done it too. So I've gone off on a run, but it's cold outside. So my nose, when I finished running, it felt just not very well. But what I was able to find is when I was nasal breathing and running, what happened was I really narrowed into my MAF pace, or my MAF zone. It seemed really intuitive, I guess. It just
a lot of people say that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the numbers kind of worked out. And the other thing I've been playing around with is power. So how does power correlate to my MAF range? And It's been interesting to see between nasal, MAF, and power, how they all they fit together quite nicely. And again, that's just, I don't have a foot pod or anything. It's just on the chorus.
Yeah. I don't use power, but Eric Orton from what's the name of the book? Born to Run fame.
Yep.
He uses power in his training and heart rate. And I haven't looked into that, but I've heard that it can be very beneficial. So, but I don't use it myself.
Yeah, I've just been playing around with it just because I got it on the watch and I thought, okay, let's see how this works, right? And that's cool. That's the beauty of it, right? I mean, I'm not running. I'm just running because I enjoy it and I want to stay healthy and stay out of the hospital. Basically, that's my medicine, right? I run.
Keep big pharma away.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we got a couple other questions that kind of popped up here. Yeah, a lot kind of came in. Hold on. Okay, so thanks for the answer, Albert. Okay, so we already got
that one. Yeah,
you done that one. Okay, hold on a second. If one cross trains, such as cycling, would a person use the same formula? I would say, yeah, but you'd probably have to work harder to get it back, to get it up there.
Yeah, with cycling, because you don't have that, it's a different force generation. Your heart rate's going to go up faster and higher with running, whereas with cycling, it's a different type of force generation, and it's harder to get your heart rate higher. So you still use the same formula, but it's okay that if it's lower. You don't have to, if your MAF is 140, you don't have to keep it at 140 the whole time with cycling. That may be too much. Maybe 130 might be good. You'll know when you get on there. You'll see. It's usually, for most people, trying to go at your MAF on cycling is actually pretty hard to do.
Yeah, for sure. So Fred was saying, hey guys, my MAF is 140, but my measured max heart rate is 198. Hold on. He continued. Hold on. I'm 45, so 70% of 198 is 139. So hey, pretty close.
Yeah, it works out that way sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You have to remember the MAF formula. A lot of people who get mad and frustrated and leave, they say, "Oh, it's a cookie cutter formula." And it's like, it seems like it's a cookie cutter, and it seems like, it's a one size fits all, and that's not it at all. It's only a starting point, and you have to go from there. And sometimes it works out where your zone 2 is your MAF. I mean, that's the way it works out. For some people, the zone 2, like the other kid we were talking about, the 25-year-old, it's lower, and for some people, it's higher. If they were to get lab tested, they might find that their MAF is 5-10 beats higher than what the formula gives them. That's why you start with the formula and then you go from there and you adjust around it. You don't, and that comes back to the people who overthink. They think, okay, I've been keeping it at 140 the entire time and I'm not improving. It's like, but how do you feel at 140? Have you tried maybe increasing 5 beats to see how that feels? There's nothing wrong with doing that. And if you're improving and you're not getting injured, well, then great. That's why it's a starting point. You have to adjust by how you feel, and that it works. Sometimes it's right on.
Hey, so Albert, have you been in a lab and been tested to figure out what all yours is?
No, I'm too lazy to do that. I just go by how I feel.
There you go. That's awesome.
I'd love to. It'd be great, but it's like, I want to go out and go to a lab, and then like, oh, you mean I have to actually go there, and then they got to put the thing on your face, and I have to run really hard for 10 minutes or something. No, I don't feel like doing that.
I'd rather just go out and go run.
Just go out and run, yeah.
KK was like, I do nasal breathing only. Oh, good for you. That's awesome. It's great when you can do something that works, right? Yeah, it's like walking. Right? When you walk, you breathe through your nose. When you're just out on your day, you breathe through your nose.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of neat, right? Fred, but I train at 130 to 140. That's perfect.
Excellent. Perfect.
Yeah, you're right in that zone.
And you're allowed to train under 130 if you want to.
Yeah.
There's a benefit to going 15, 20 under MAF. I do it very, very regularly on my, like if I do a day where I have a long run, like yesterday I did 3 hours out in this beautiful area, and today I kept my heart rate about 20 under, just because it's good recovery, and you actually get faster at that lower rate. I don't train that way every day, but for recovery days, it's beneficial to go under MAF.
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's one of the things that I've been thinking about, especially with just winter. Because I had a friend of mine, he was actually out running and he wiped out on black ice and he's fractured 2 of his ribs. So he's out for a period of time. He's walking every day though, but he went down hard. So I mean, this is the thing, and this is the thing in the colder climates, right? We got to pay attention to what's going on in our environment.
Right.
I run on the road. I do not run on the sidewalks. I will run on the road. And people always say, why do you run on the road? It's because they put salts and stuff down and cars are driving on it every day. On the sidewalks, you don't know what's underneath that little amount of snow that came down, right? You can wipe out easy. So I'm always running on the road, or you'll find me on the trail, but then I've got, spikes on and I'm okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about there. I don't.
All these Southerners, right? Like all the warm weather. That's it, Albert. I'm moving down.
Got a lot of Canadians here.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so we have a new member here, Shay Halpenny. Welcome. Nice to have you here. If you got any question, certainly post it below and we'll certainly answer it for you. Thanks for joining. Fred, MAF is a ceiling, not a target. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Julie, nasal breathing.
Ceiling for when you're doing base training. You are allowed to go over your MAF when you're doing harder training. Okay, it's not a black and white thing. When you are preparing for a 5K or a marathon, half marathon, and you're going to do speed work, and that's a part of your plan, or if you're racing, you can go over MAF. You're allowed to.
Yep, absolutely. So Julie was saying, yeah, nasal breathing really helps when you're eating on a long run. And I agree with that. It certainly does help, Julie. Not running guy. Hey, David and Albert, how are you? That's Chris from the UK. Nice to see you there. So one of the things that I've been trying to figure out, and I don't know the answer, and Albert, I don't think you're good. Well, You're not going to know the answer to part of the question I'm going to ask. You may know it on the other side, but the question kind of is, and I'm trying to experiment with this and do research on this, is so in the summer, it's really hot. Your body's trying to cool itself down. So our heart rate's going to be elevated, right? We all know that. Now, in cold climates, it's minus 20 outside, we're running and my heart rate is higher, but it's colder now. So obviously all of our veins, everything's constricted. So it's I guess the path is narrower because it's colder and we're trying to stay warm. I'm trying to figure out whether the higher in temperature makes your heart rate higher, or when it's colder, does it make it go higher? Or where is that sweet spot? What temperature is your optimal heart rate for running? Like, what is that kind of range? That's what I've been thinking about in the last little while.
Yeah, I think that can be highly individual. For me, my optimal running temperature is between 40 and 60 and slightly damp. But for some people, they can go into the 30s. I find that going down in the 30s, I need to start putting on layers and whatnot. And that, of course, you're wearing more clothing, so that increases your effort level, which increases your heart rate. And of course, as you go down in temperature, I don't know what the cutoff is temperature wise, but when it starts getting a lot colder, you have to layer up more, you're more constricted, and your body has to work harder to keep itself warm and to keep itself moving. So it makes sense that the heart rate would go up. And same thing with the heat. Once you get past a certain, I've noticed it's about 60, 65, where your heart rate will start to rise as the temperature rises, and your effort level is higher for that same pace that you were doing before. So it's individual, but for me, the sweet spot's about 40 to 60 in there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I find mine tends to be anywhere from, and again, I'm going to go Celsius on everybody now. So mine would probably be anywhere from about 4 Celsius to about 10 Celsius. That's a nice range. And again, it's
40 to 50.
Yeah, it's a very, very small range, but I find that really narrows it down, and it seems to work really well. I guess a couple of other people found that too. So Fred was saying he does the 80-20, but all my easy runs are MAF run. That's perfect.
Good to go. Yeah, 80-20 is very MAF-like. I know Matt Fitzgerald is the 80-20 pioneer, and it's very, very MAF-like. It incorporates that 20% where you go over. And actually, I believe the Maffetone method supports that methodology. I just think that they tend to err more on the side of you should build your base first before getting into that. But they definitely support that. Yeah, it's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it sure is. So that running guy, I found that with MAF training, I also have to learn to get used to changing my running form.
Yep.
He's running slower. Yeah, absolutely. That's actually one of the first things I learned, because people are like, how do you run with a cadence of like 178 to 180?
Yeah. It's training, it's strength, it's training yourself. Like for me, whether I run a 12-minute mile or I run a 7-minute mile, I'm doing about a 180, 185 cadence. Because I've trained myself to do that. You have to train. It's not like something you just do. You have to really train that. And for people coming into MAF, they have to slow down. Their form is affected. They're more shuffly, more hunch, more heavy steps. And you have to train your running muscles, as it were. And there are a lot of different drills that you can do to help with that. And those drills actually involve some higher intensity training, but that helps you at the lower intensity. I know Eric Orton, if you see Eric Orton on YouTube, he talks a lot about that and has a lot of really great exercises that I would recommend for running drills.
Yeah, he's got some great ones on there. So
awesome.
If anyone hasn't seen it, certainly check it out, guys, because that would help a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have been training for about a year on MAF. For me, my heart rate stays stable at 130. However, my heart rate starts to spike after 6 miles. Any idea why heart rate spikes? What should I handle heart rate? Fatigue.
You're fatigued. So your body has to work harder to go at the same pace. So keep it at or below, when you're in your base training phase, keep it at or below MAF. And eventually you'll be able to go 6.5 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles, 9 miles, and be able to keep it lower. Now, one thing that I would say a lot of beginners do is they go out too hard and they go right up to MAF. So if their MAF is 140, within a minute or two, they're at 140, and that's too fast. What you should do is do a nice gradual warm up where you're going, 115, 120, 120, 125, 125, 130, and then you work your way up to 140 after 15, 20 minutes. And that will help you go longer. It'll also warm up your muscles, your joints, your ligaments, all your tendons. Everything gets warmed up and gets more supple. And then after a while, it'll help you become more fatigue resistant, and then you'll be able to go longer and your heart rate won't spike quite so much. That's very, very typical. I used to do that. I used to go right out and just 7-minute mile. So yeah, we all do it. We've all done it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think a lot of people don't even bother doing a warm up. I mean, I think that I love the warm up part just to kind of get things going, because I guess as I age, I kind of need to kind of limber up a little bit more before I kind of start going and doing my run. But one thing I've noticed, if I don't do my warm up, the first 15 minutes, my heart rate will be kind of all over the place. I think it's not really settled yet. But after about 15 minutes, I get a nice heart rate, right?
Mm-hmm. Settled in.
Yeah, that's one thing I find. So KK was saying she likes 55 with no wind. That's her perfect temperature. So yeah, it seems to be in that sweet spot like you were talking about, Albert.
Oh, I love wind as long as it's at my back.
Your back, yeah.
It's in my face, it's irritating.
I can handle all kinds of weather conditions. I can handle like everything. The one weather condition I have the hardest time with is wind. That's the one thing, especially when it's like coming right at you or at the side. Oh, and when it's cold, it's brutal.
It kills your pace.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I just don't enjoy it at all. So Travis was saying, training for my first marathon, I've been doing 95% of my runs at MAF. I figured 12 weeks out from the race, and then I'd add some speed work in. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'd be doing.
Yep.
Yeah, Travis, you dialed it in. Perfect. Marie was saying, cadence is my downfall. I've only recently got it up to about 150 and can't imagine doing 170, 180. Hey, at first I was like the same way. Like it was hard for me, but I found that you just take quicker steps. It's just like, I just say in my head, baby step, baby step, baby step, baby step.
It's a strength issue. It's a strength issue.
Yeah.
So like I said, Eric Gordon running drills.
Eric Gordon running drills. Yeah, like because that was a challenge at first, right? So I would say that to myself, and then over time, the stronger I got, the more those strength exercises I did, the better I did, and that wasn't a big issue at the end of the day. Thanks for the answer. I do warm-ups before. Good. That's awesome. You definitely want to be doing that. Travis, do you need more speed to meet your goal, or do you need more fitness?
Maybe both.
Maybe both, exactly. Lisa was saying, she goes, I'm a beginner. How much should I start out with? 35 minutes a few times a week? I've been doing that for about 2 weeks so far, but is it too little?
That's a tough one. I mean, I don't know what fitness background she's coming from before. I don't know any kind of health history or anything like that. I'd say I'm again, walk a lot in the beginning and start mixing running in as you go. Anything is good. I would say if you can do 3 days a week, that'd be even better. And then kind of add on a little bit as you go. But I'm not going to say that 2 times a week is too little. I think 0 times a week is too little. I think 2 times a week is fantastic. And if you feel like you can do more, just listen to your body.
Yeah,
you'll improve.
Yeah, and your heart rate's going to tell you. It's going to tell you if you're overtraining. It's going to be, it'll be higher. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started when I started running, I was like a run walk guy, right? So run for a couple of minutes and then walk and I just kind of progressed, right? And worked my way through it. So,
right.
I mean, we all got to do what is best for us. And in time, you just got to listen to the body, because if you don't, you're going to get injured. You're going to overtrain. You're going to go, running sucks. It doesn't work for me. And then you're not going to bother. Right. And that's not what we want. Right. A-flaming sword, rules of strides to keep the body ready for speed in the future. I'd say watch the drills that Eric Gorton was talking that he does.
Strides are good. Aerobic 7-second strides are really good to do. 7 seconds, meaning you go for 7 seconds at your MAF, and then you lower it, and then relax, and then you go 7 seconds. And, there's no amount of time in between, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever it takes. But I like to do 7-second strides every once in a while at my MAF, and then lower it. That's a good thing to do.
So where did the 7 seconds come from? Was that just like an arbitrary number?
I heard Phil say it.
Okay.
I don't know what it means.
We just do it. We just do what the Grandmaster has told us to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, so I'm going to take a couple more questions here, and then we probably should wrap it up. We're kind of at the hour, and I'm just very grateful for your time, Albert. So I don't want to keep much longer here. Ramiro was saying quicker steps means heart rate spikes immediately, and I can't go any distance at all. Yeah, it's muscle, right? Work on strength training, and just you got to give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, give it time. Lots of walking, and honestly, if you find your heart rate spiking and you're getting irritated, and you're like, I can't, take your heart rate monitor and your watch off once per week, and just go for a nice run, and forget about your heart rate, forget about all that stuff, and go enjoy yourself. The one run's not going to kill you, okay? Right. And in fact, that possible quicker running that you're doing can help with your strength. Now, I don't advocate doing that every single day, but when it comes to happiness and getting rid of the frustration, I always say, take a day away from the heart rate training and just go breathe the air and have fun, and that'll help. The strength thing takes time. I remember when I couldn't shuffle at a quick pace, even though I'd been running for years, it took some training to do that. So be patient with yourself.
Yeah, I find that people tend to beat themselves up a lot, and then
all the time
stress on them.
Yes.
And then it's kind of like that vicious cycle. So before I let you go, I guess, what would you say to someone who just wants to, who's just starting off? Let's say they've been running for a couple of years, right? 2 years. Mm. They haven't really run a marathon. Let's say the longest they've run is a half marathon, and they want to go longer distances. Mm-hmm. What would you suggest for somebody in that kind of in that case, Albert?
Cool. I'll answer a general question with a very general answer. Whatever you were doing before to get there, if you were healthy, it's all about, if you're doing longer races, past the half marathon, like 18 miles, 20K or 25K or whatever, marathon, do add on a little bit more for your long run. The long run is where the money's at in terms of being able to go the distance. And then all the other stuff that you do, speed work, tempo runs, midweek, mid-distance tempo running, stuff like that. That you add that on much later. But it's the long run. Add little increments, just little bit. And of course, listen to your body. And every so often, take a step back, reduce your miles, let your body recover, and don't be in a rush to build the miles, because that will just lead to issues.
Yeah. Very, very, very good sound advice. I mean, 27 plus years, man. And look at you, you're like rock solid, man. Like,
I try.
That's awesome. So guys,
a fun ride.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so if you guys want to have Albert come on again, comment below, let me know. Give the video a like, let us know that you want Albert to come back on, because I could go on for another long time, but I'm not. I have places I have to go, and I'm sure that all of you guys do as well. So Albert, listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your patience.
Yeah, no problem. It's been fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and thanks for supporting me and all of my running, and everything else, because I just want to be able to give back to the community that's helped me and just help others, right?
Your videos rock. They're super positive. Your videos are great, and there's such a good influence on people. I'm keep it up, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I try. I try. It's not easy to put together, I'll tell you that, but I certainly do try. Well, thanks a lot.
Cool.
And actually, sorry, Marie, she just had one question. Wondering if my age is a factor. I'm 63.
It could be.
It could be. You may want to add a couple of beats on the upper end, or you may want to reduce it. Play around and see what works for you. Just make sure that you're looking at the results that you're getting. Right. So, yeah, you're getting a couple of people wanting you to come back on, Albert. So we'll have to figure out a time, and we'll certainly do that.
You know how to reach me.
Sounds like a plan, man. I appreciate it. All right, everyone.
Thanks
for tuning in. Appreciate it. And we will chat with everyone later. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.